Hello, my name is Nancy Scott. I will be your moderator in this session of Know Your Candidates. Know Your Candidates is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and TCTV. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens, and we're committed to inform people about the major issues and the positions of candidates like these on those issues. In this segment of Know Your Candidates, we'll be meeting the 4 candidates for Thurston County Assessor. We have Dennis Pulsipher, Steve Drew, Glen Morgan, and Jeff Gadman. Yes. So they will be making initial statements, and then they will be answering questions that we have developed. League of Women Voters has developed for them. So we'll begin with their opening statements. Mr. Pulsipher.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Dennis Pulsipher, Democratic candidate for Thurston County Assessor. I'm very excited to be running as your next county assessor. I've been doorbelling in Thurston County since the start of the year, and what I found from talking to people is that they would like to see a candidate that has experience, that has competency, and that has leadership abilities. Currently, I'm Chief Deputy Assessor with the Thurston County Assessor's Office, and I have over 30 years of experience in public service and property assessments with King, Pierce, Thurston counties, and Washington State Department of Revenue. Property appraisal and property assessment have been my career background and for the past 30 years, and I take great pride in that profession. Over the past 11 years as Chief Deputy Assessor, we have improved operations by implementing new technologies, by investing in staff training and skills development, and by creating and implementing appraisal standards throughout the entire office. During that time, we've been recognized for excellence. We have won 2 international awards for assessment and customer service. We've been recognized for best practices by the Washington State Department of Revenue, and we've been in the audits by the Washington State Auditor's Office and by the Washington State Department of Revenue. We've passed with flying colors in every aspect of our office. Most importantly, the state legislature has recognized that Thurston County has one of the best assessment programs in the state of Washington, and we're proud of those accomplishments. Like any successful organization, however, we cannot rest on our past success. We must continue to look at ourselves and see what we can do better. There's 3 areas that I will focus on as your next assessor. First, customer service and community outreach is paramount within our office. During that time, we'll enhance the opportunities for public to participate by having greater community meetings, improving internet presence, and ensuring responsiveness to your needs. Second, I'll ensure assessments are fair, equitable, and uniform. We all pay a lot of tax, and it's important that we only pay our share and not anybody else's share. And third, I'll work with the public, the county commissioners, and the departments to enhance the efficiency of the operations of our office. In fact, in the first 90 days of taking office, I'll appoint a task force of citizens to help setting the direction of the assessor's office in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drew. Your opening statements for the voters.
Thank you. My name is Stephen Drew, and I'm running to serve as your next county assessor. I was encouraged to enter this race because of leadership and professional skills to make a positive difference in how this office serves each of you. I have been licensed in this state as an independent property claims adjuster for 27 years, and I've operated my own business for 18 years. As a property general adjuster, I have valued real and personal property, commercial, industrial, and residential clients across this state. I will bring adaptive management and creative problem-solving skills to assure all taxpayers receive the best service, even in these tough economic times. The assessor's office provides a vital service that should be grounded by integrity, equity, and an open process. Under my leadership, you can expect a return focus to providing the highest level of customer service, direct accountability, and greater efficiency. Our property values first rose and then dropped sharply. Over the past few years, and more people across our state appealed their property tax valuations over this period, Thurston County has had the unfortunate distinction of having the longest backlog in the appeals statewide. My approach as assessor will be to provide concerned taxpayers information about how their values were determined as quickly as possible, to encourage dialogue with my office and to work collaboratively with county commissioners, the treasurer's staff, to reduce this backlog and prevent it from happening again. I am honored to have the support of many elected leaders you trust, including State Treasurer Jim McIntyre, former County Treasurer Robin Hunt, State Representatives Sam Hunt, Brendan Williams, and Fred Finn, Washington Federation of State Employees, Olympia Area Building Trades Council, and Lacey Professional Firefighters. My name is Stephen Drew, and I am your candidate for Thurston County Assessor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drew. Okay, Jeff.
Glen. Hi, my name's Glen Morgan, and I'm the Republican candidate for the Thurston County Assessor's Office. And while I am the only Republican running in this race this year, it's certainly, the assessor's race really isn't a partisan thing. Most people just want fair and honest property values for change, and they don't feel that they're getting them right now. We've been in a recession for nearly 3 years, and yet it appears that the only department in the county that doesn't seem to recognize this has been the assessor's office. Now, I'm always reminded of a story. My grandpa, when we used to drive down I-5 and we would come around the corner and you'd see the state capitol for the first time. My grandpa used to always joke with me, "There's the robber's roost." That's what he used to tell me as a kid. So we'd always laugh. It was always funny, and I still thought it was funny as I was older. And there's always an element of humor in that, just because there's always some truth. Unfortunately, that's how people oftentimes have viewed the assessor's office in our county right now. And this was really driven home to me when I was doorbelling for the Rochester School District earlier this year. Largely when you're going out there and asking people to vote for a school levy, these are usually the people who tend to vote for that levy more often than not. And I was told time after time the most common reason why these people were never going to vote for that levy or any future levies, they told me, was because they no longer believed that their property values were accurate or honest. Now, I've seen this firsthand with my father and his appeal process with the assessor's office in the same parcel of land for the last 9 years in a row. And although he wins his appeal nearly every year, that Board of Equalization decision is reset as though it was never happened, and he has to go back and appeal again. And I believe that what this office needs is not somebody with appraisal background, but actually somebody who has experience in the business world and real leadership experience, and somebody who can come in there and actually make the correct policy decisions in the favor of the taxpayers with some empathy for the taxpayers and the decision-making process that they need to go through, both with their appeals and the other decisions there. And my goal would be that when I'm done with the assessor's office, that people are no longer driving by that building and looking over and saying, "There's the robber's roost."
Thank you. Okay, Jeff.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Gadman. I'm a Democratic candidate for Thurston County Assessor. Been in the office for 24 years, and I'm currently working there as a commercial and industrial appraiser. I've been trained or worked in most aspects of the office. I understand what the office does, how it works, how it's supposed to work, and I can hit the job day one running as an efficient assessor. There won't be any ramp-up time or learning. In my 24 years, one of the guiding principles that I've had is that every time somebody in our office makes a decision, our hands are in your wallet. I really want to protect your wallet. I intend to do this by promising you fair and accurate property assessments. I intend to do this by giving you clear and understandable explanations of how we achieved your value. Then my staff is going to be directed to always speak with you in a solutions-oriented way. We want to work out our differences to try and prevent more Board of Equalization petitions. Historically, the Board of Equalization rate of petition has been half what it is currently. I can get it back there. There are efficiencies to be made within the staff that can give us better resources, and I think that you deserve a good working assessor. I'd like to also add that I recently received the endorsement of the Thurston Mason Lewis County's Labor Council, AFL-CIO. I really want your vote. Thank you.
Okay, we'll begin with our questions. I think a lot of people don't realize how important the assessor's job is. I mean, your taxes, one of these men will be collecting your taxes. So let's ask the first question. We'll begin with Mr. Pulsipher. How would you improve the property tax appeal process to make it more timely and responsive?
I think it's important that we step back and realize or clarify that it's important for people to know that the Board of Equalization is an independent body separate from the assessor's office and that we have no jurisdiction over them. Taxpayers file their appeals with the Board of Equalization. There's actually no backlog in appeals in the assessor's office. When we receive an appeal from the board, we assign it to an appraiser who evaluates and reviews the appeal, contacts the homeowner if there's any issues to be able to review with the homeowner, and then resolves the issue or sends off an appeal response. The work of the assessor's office does not and will not delay scheduling of hearings with the Board of Equalization. We've responded in a timely manner in the past and we will continue to do it in the future. I think it's important to realize in the spring of 2010, the Board of Equalization began giving the assessor's office the 2009 appeals. The assessor's office immediately began responding to those appeals so that the board could schedule hearings for those appeals. We will work with the board Board of Equalization and the Board of County Commissioners to improve the process. Previously, we've provided a set of recommendations to the board to put in place to assist them with that process. We will make a commitment to continue to work with the Board of Commissioners and the Board of Equalization to improve that process. However, it would be a process where we would contribute in an environment of assistance.
Thank you. We'll get a quick response we'll begin with Mr. Drew. What would be your response to the issue of property tax appeals?
Thank you. Well, we've just heard that when you file an appeal, the dialogue stops. I do not believe that's appropriate. The moment someone files an appeal, their appeal is on record, and that list can be forwarded back to the assessor's office, and the assessor could take the opportunity to send the basis for that person's valuation to them without delay. This is straight out, it's a matter of respect. If you file a Freedom of Information request, we have 5 days to get you the same information. And here you file an appeal, we take as long as 18 months to get you that information. Dialogue should be encouraged throughout the backlog process directly between the assessor's office and the property owner who has a concern. Productive dialogue. When they get that basis for their taxes, they see in the fact sheet that there are facts that are incorrect about their property, they should be encouraged to contact the assessor's office. And if they drive their comps, once they're provided to them and they find that they don't have cause to proceed, they should be encouraged to withdraw their appeal. Both those would substantially reduce the backlog for those people that continue to have an issue. Thank you.
Okay, Glenn.
Most people don't feel that the appeals process is fair right now. When I've gone out and doorbelled, there's several issues that particularly irritate the average taxpayer. Number one is that they only have 30 days to respond to that tax value when they first get that statement in the mail. And right now, Pierce County gives people 60 days. I would recommend, from a policy change standpoint, that I would go in there and recommend giving people a longer period of time. It's a fairly complex process that the assessor's office and the appraisers go through to determine that property value. It's unfair to expect somebody, average taxpayer out there, to necessarily go back and be able to determine whether what's been done on their property is accurate and fair in such a short period of time, and I think I've found that to be a common complaint that people have. Second issue that I would do from a policy change standpoint is recognize that when the Board of Equalization does have a ruling, it's independent of the assessor's office, but that ruling should be set the new benchmark for the property valuation the next year and not just continually to repeat the same mistakes again year after year. The reason why there's such an appeal backlog, and there's so many people appealing, and why that number is twice as high as it was 12 years ago as a percentage, is because of incorrect property assessments in the first place. And that's what I would address as the core issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jeff.
Thank you. Reducing the number of appeals starts with the original assessment process in determining the value for your property. By making sure that the value of your property is as accurate as we could possibly get it before you ever get your value notice, it's going to reduce a lot of the animosity that the public feels towards our office. After that, when you call our office, you need to get a clear, understandable explanation of how your value was arrived at and how it was calculated. We need to work with you and discover if there are any inaccuracies in our records that need to be corrected, and work with you so that you understand what is going on with the markets in your neighborhood so that hopefully you feel better about your value. The Board of Equalization should always be an absolute last resort.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mr. Drew. Do you think Thurston County is better served by having its office administrators, like assessor and treasurer, elected rather than appointed? And what would your reasoning be about the election versus appointed?
Okay. Well, that's an interesting question. I guess I come from a point of view that the assessor should be directly accountable to the voters. This discussion we're having here today, I guess, brings that to the forefront. If we have an assessor that's appointed by the county commission, there are too many levels of government between the voters and the services provided by this vital department within the county. And look, when I'm out doorbelling and meeting people across this county, there is a lot of dissatisfaction with interaction with the assessor's office. How difficult it is to get your question answered, get it answered in a timely way. The paying of taxes is, for most of us, it's the largest bill we pay each year. And our tax system is what it is, but it is completely based upon the valuation of your property. And it is, for most families, budgeting their resources throughout the year, these are the two most pivotal dates for them. And the assessor and the process has to be directly accountable to the voters. So I believe that the only option for this office is to have it be an elected position.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Glenn, your position on elected versus appointed.
I have to say I completely agree with Stephen. I think that that this position should be an elected position. I think if it was an appointed position, you'd see a lot of the problems that you have in King County right now. With an unaccountable assessor and who's unaccountable to the voters. And I think that creates a lot of animosity. At least every 4 years, the voter right now has the ability to come in and make a change if they think something's going wrong. And so I think from that standpoint, to answer that question, I think that it should be an elected position. I appreciate the fact that when Dennis's opening statements where he mentioned that he was the deputy assessor at the Thurston County Assessor's office right now, but I believe that even Dennis recognizes all the problems that assessor's office has in the minds of the average taxpayer in the county, because in his own voter guide statement, he doesn't admit that he's the deputy assessor or that he even works in the office. And I think that speaks volumes as to some of the problems that exist in that office in the minds of the average taxpayer and the average person that lives in Thurston County. And so that's my statement there.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, elected versus appointed.
I agree. This needs to be a position that is directly connected to the voters. I really dislike bureaucracies, and I see the appointment process as creating more bureaucracy and more insulation from a very important position, or insulation between the appointed position and the voters. I think that an elected official is much more responsive to the needs and desires and concerns of the voters, and that the voters paying attention to what this office means to them and to their daily lives needs to be kept up. I almost said restored. But yes, I really think that this needs to remain an elected position.
Okay. And Dennis.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to respond. I believe the assessor's office should be an elected official. In Washington State, all 39 counties, including King County, are an elected position. And it's important that it stay elected position, because it really needs to be free of any kind of intimidation and influence from outside parties. It really needs to be independent, yet accountable to the property owners of Thurston County. We have a situation in Thurston County, and it's an ongoing situation where special interests are attempting to stop or to eliminate paying property tax where they shifted over to the rest of the residential property owners. Great Wolf Lodge, we fought for 2 years and won a decision in federal court to ensure that $100 million in property taxes was not shifted over the life of that project over to the property owners in the south end of Thurston County. We've heard great kudos from the property owners in Thurston County, especially the south end, that appreciated that we stood up and defended them and represented all taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next question will begin with Glen Morgan. Do you think Thurston County is better served by having its office administrators, like assessors, partisan rather than nonpartisan? We have 3 Dems and you're the Republican.
Sure.
What's the advantage of being a
I know in some
partisan?
counties have it, so the assessor's not a partisan position. And when you go out there and you talk to the average person, I don't know that the partisan position for an office like this, it's largely a policy sort of position rather than legislative. People oftentimes say that it shouldn't be a partisan office. And I've got mixed feelings on that, but I would say probably largely it doesn't need to be. It is right now, and I guess there's some value to that in the sense that you can, the average voter can look at somebody and believe that there's a certain perspective that somebody has when they're approaching that office, when they're running for that office. But it's not something that I would feel very strongly about. Frequently, I find myself largely doorbelling in Democrat neighborhoods, and what I find is that most people say they're going to vote for the person, not for the party. And I think that's a fairly common position with most voters in Thurston County, regardless of what their party affiliation is. And that's generally the approach that I know I would take, and I think most people would take that.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff, your opinion about partisan, nonpartisan?
I agree with Mr. Morgan. This should not be a partisan position. It's largely an administrative position, and I think that the people need to focus on who's going to be best at administering the statutes we operate under and administering the policies that need to be set in the office to improve operations or to maintain operations. And I think that the public would be better served because it really doesn't matter Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, or whatever. Your political ideals can't really shape what this office is supposed to be doing.
Dennis, what do you think about partisan and nonpartisan?
Well, actually, it's an issue that's come up quite a bit when I talk out in the community. And it's a common question is asked, why is that position, why is that office a partisan position? And I have to relate to them that from my perspective, there is no room for politics within the decision-making process to assess property, to administer the programs of the assessor's office. It's okay to have a personal belief and philosophy that dovetails or aligns itself with a different party. However, you can't bring that into the office and let that guide you in terms of setting the goals of the office. The goals of the office should be fair, uniform, and assessment property taxes and assessments for all property owners in Thurston County.
Thank you. Stephen.
Well, I think the first and foremost that the standing assessor in administering the task of assessing values countywide in every respect should occur without partisan concerns ever entering the discussion or consideration. Some voters out there value the partisan distinction as they're trying to make a decision of who to support in a contested race. I'm somewhat agnostic on the subject, I guess. I'm a Democrat and I'm not shy about it, but I'm completely respectful of all people, of all views, and this partisan question will never enter into any decision, any policy that I would set as assessor. Those policies will uniformly be aimed at providing better service, more timely response to questions about a taxpayer's assessment, less obstruction to understanding how your taxes were assessed, and getting at backlogs at the appeal and any process that exists at the assessor's office or connected with a taxpayer's taxes, regardless of party affiliation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next question will begin with Mr. Gadman. What is your assessment of the property tax caps? I mean, the legislature has been playing around with property tax caps for some time, but what is your assessment of the property tax cap relative to maintaining county services? I mean, how low can you go and still get schools and police and...
That's a very interesting question because, property tax wise, each taxing district is limited to increasing their revenue 1% every year, regardless of what the inflation rate is, regardless of the amount of population influx we get. When we get a large amount of population increase, we hit that 1% limit on the revenue, and nobody likes to pay taxes, but everybody likes the services. I really think everybody wants to pay their fair share. It does become a challenge budget-wise for a county official to try and figure out exactly where the most important aspects of his or her operation are. And I think that the limits are important so that the voters do have some assurance that they're not going to be taxed out of their homes, because that would be tragic. But I also think that the 1% in times when we're having 5% inflation is really limiting on the taxing districts and the officials that those affect. So I think limits are important, but I think the elected officials have lost a lot of the leeway they used to have in their budgeting. I am not for more government at all. But at the same time, we have to deliver our services in the best possible manner.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pulsipher, how would you deal with property tax caps when you're still, trying to provide services?
Well, I think what you've identified probably was property value limitations. And what I find when I'm out speaking to the public is that, and my neighbors and colleagues, is that most people are really looking for a property tax cap, not assessed value cap. Assessed values are just a tool to allocate who's going to pay what portion of the burden. Really the need, I think, in the community is, can we cap the tax that's collected collectively from all of us or individually? And that's probably the more important consideration, is assessed value just allocates and says who's going to pay what portion of the tax. But it doesn't really drive the amount of tax that's collected for each one of the taxing districts. It's just who's going to pay what portion of it. More critical than that is, for most working families, is the amount of tax that they pay. And rather than shifting it over to a different set of families throughout the county or a different set of businesses, probably the most important thing is, how do we cap or limit the growth of taxes themselves?
Okay. Mr. Drew, property tax caps.
Well, if your question relates to the 1% cap that taxes can be raised by a taxing jurisdiction without a vote of the people.
Well, the question is, what is the cap and how can you provide services? How do you balance that?
Okay. So all of our taxing districts, whether it's the city, the county, the state, junior taxing districts like school districts and fire districts, they all have a need and an ability in our democracy to make their case for the services that they're providing and the funding it will take to provide those services. And I have faith in that system. There is a 1% cap for entities to raise taxes annually without a vote of the people. And I support that concept because I believe in the democratic process that we go through in all of these taxing districts as entities make their case for the cost of additional service and the services that will be provided, and for a set term. And voters have the ability, based upon the economy of the time, based upon their balancing of needs for all the measures that they pay for through property tax, to affirm or reject those taxes. And I support that system.
I generally support property tax caps as a general rule. I mean, one of the advantages of the levy system is that if the school district or the fire department or somebody needs to have more than the 1% increase, they have the ability to go before the taxpayer and ask them for that. And I think that that's democracy in action. I think that's putting it back in the taxpayer's decision-making realm. And I think people appreciate that, having that control. The assessor, I think Dennis was accurate on this statement when he said that the assessor is primarily focused on determining property values. The decisions as to what those levy rates are going to be is not the assessor's to make, and how those funds are going to be used, the assessor cannot influence that. What the assessor needs to stay focused on is getting accurate and honest, fair and honest property values, and that's what people would like to have out there for a change.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our last question before we go into our final statements, we'll start with Dennis. What would be your administrative priorities for your term of office? I mean, how would you run your office? What do you see your role to be as a county employee?
Well, as the elected official, certainly it would be the elected official running the office and overseeing operations. County governments and local governments, as well as state governments, are facing a funding crisis. There's certainly declining revenues to support the growing demand for services that are requested by the public. A key role for the assessor and staff will be to identify where further efficiencies can be made, how improvements can be made to be able to adapt and address falling revenues. And there's continuing crunch or impact on departments to be able to have funding to provide those services. A critical thing will be to implement additional technology, to continue on with the role we've made in terms of investing in staff and training, and to look for solutions to working together with other county departments. One area would be to continue to outreach to the community with community meetings and involve them in the assessment process to understand that. Another issue is that I would form a citizens review committee of citizens in Thurston County to be able to provide input to the county assessor and set the direction for the next 4 years. And part of that direction would be how the county can work with how the county assessor can work with other departments and take care of issues in terms of efficiency and providing a delivery of services that meet the customer's needs.
Okay. Mr. Drew, what would your administrative priorities, how would you run your office?
Well, as budgets are cut, as they have been in each of the last few years, and likely will be at the county and in the assessor's office in each of the next few years, it is an ongoing challenge to continue to provide a level of service with fewer resources. Look, in small business, we deal with this every day, and in our family budgets, we deal with these choices, the same type of choices every day. As the assessor, I will look under every stone to apply creative solutions to getting at how to deliver services with fewer resources. The problem is not just limited to efficiency. It involves how you structure your budget in the assessor's office in good times and in bad. You need to invest in employee training and provide the tools to your staff in good times, and that benefits how the office operates in bad times. You have to work collaboratively with all of the other county officials in order to provide creative solutions to problems whenever they arise. Thank you.
Okay, how would you run your office?
Well, as assessor, I think that one of the things the assessor needs to recognize is that they do work for the taxpayer and not against them. And that while they have a certain role to play there, that there are several things that I would do as assessor that just to make that office be more friendly to the average taxpayer. One thing is that the office is closed right now between noon and 1 every day. It's the single hour of the day that the average working person could actually have access to an employee at the assessor's office, and right now they don't have access to them. And I would open up the office so that people could actually come down there and meet somebody at that time. Most offices are open 9 to 5, most businesses, they find a way to shift staff around so that you can work the front desk. If I have to work the front desk myself, I'd be happy to do that. I do think that making it more friendly for the taxpayer, both in the appeals process so that they have a clear path to appeal their taxes and they feel like they have enough time to do so, and that if they are successful in that appeal process, that they know that they don't just have to repeat themselves year after year. And finally, just going back to the original assessed values in the first place, making sure that they are fair and accurate for a change.
Okay, Mr. Glen.
Thank you. I would also make sure that the assessments are fair and as accurate as possible. We need to listen to the public and what they are demanding from us. What do they want to see from our office? Reducing the Board of Equalization petitions is paramount to finding efficiency in our office. It is one of the most expensive processes that the assessor's office has to deliver in terms of service to the public. The fair and accurate assessments are going to cut back on those petitions, the clear, understandable explanations of where the value came from, and then working collaboratively with the public on solutions-oriented issue, or working towards a solution to a difference rather than assuming that you're going to go to the Board of Equalization. Technology would be good, but we've got to be careful how we implement it. A lot of times technological innovation ends up alienating the public, not just from a government agency, but also from private companies. So we've got to be very careful when we implement new technology that we keep our focus on the taxpayers and we stay in touch with them so that we know what they need.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to our final statements, but I'd just like to read something for the voters. The role of the assessor. I mean, we know that legislatures and all that county people, but the role of the assessor is to determine the assessed valuation of taxable property in the county for purpose of property taxation. So a lot of your money goes into property taxes, and one of these people will be in charge of that and will be setting those, will be collecting those taxes. It's a very important position, but we're going to go to our final statements, and we'll start with Mr. Gadman. If you would be, you have a couple of minutes to give a final statement about how you would meet that role of assessing property taxes. And
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us here today. I think this is a great opportunity so that you get to know the candidates. As I stated before, my experience in the assessor's office gives me a lot of knowledge and experience in how the office operates. January 1st, I will be able to start implementing ideas. I will be able to start the job. There's no ramp-up time. There's no education time. I'm going to work on fair and accurate assessments. I'm going to work on reducing the Board of Equalization backlog. I'm going to make the office more responsive to you with clear, understandable explanations. And I'm going to make sure that we are always in touch with the public through community outreach in local neighborhoods, in local communities on a regular basis so that we hear you, so that we keep our pulse on what the public demands from this office. Thank you.
okay.
I think that what I hear frequently when I'm out there speaking to people is that they just want fair and honest property values for a change. They don't feel that they're getting it now. And I think that one of the things that we have to do is go in there and address that issue at first, right off the bat. And the other issue is I think some of these policy changes that need to be made in the office need to be implemented quickly so that people realize that there is a responsiveness from this office for them. And I will never forget that the assessor works for the taxpayer, not against them. Right now, I feel that most people feel that the assessor's office is not on their side and that it's not a very friendly relationship and not a very positive one. The assessor fills an important role in our community. This is how we fund our schools, our police, and many other vital services. It makes up roughly 30%, the tax rolls make up, from property taxes, make up roughly 30% of the Washington state budget. Much in our community depends on this, and it needs to be done in a way that there's some credibility. And I would focus on restoring that credibility and restoring the positive relationship that this office needs to have with the average taxpayer. There are many good appraisers in the office. I think Jeff is a stellar appraiser, and he's one of the best appraisers in that office. And I think that, from by all accounts, and I think there's a lot of good appraisers, and I think that what they need, what this office needs, is somebody in there who's willing to fight the battle, represent the people, have empathy for the taxpayer, and come in here and address some of these issues that, by all objective standards, have not been addressed over the last many years. And that is the issues, those are the issues that I would focus on as the assessor.
Thank you. Mr. Drew. Your final
Well, my
statement.
name is, thank you. My name is Stephen Drew, and I am a Democratic candidate for County Assessor. I am the candidate with the professional business and leadership experience needed to get the assessor's office back on track. Of course, we need to focus on the #1 priority, which is assuring that everyone's assessment is fair and equitable. But we need to make the assessor's office more accessible to the taxpayers and the voters of Thurston County. There need to be no barriers when someone has a question. Our timeline in getting information out to individuals must be shorter. The backlog must be shorter. We must do everything we can to avoid leaving people with the only choice of filing an appeal and waiting 1.5 years while we hold their funds in order to get due process. And the office most certainly should be open during the lunch hour. When we cut budgets, we need to find ways to operate within the budget without insulting the taxpayers. People have very limited time to get back to the office to get issues resolved, and lunchtime is a critical time. I am honored to have the trust and support from so many of the leaders you trust. State Treasurer Jim McIntyre, former County Treasurer Robin Hunt, State Representative Sam Hunt, Brandon Williams, and Fred Finn, the Washington Federation of State Employees, Olympia Area Building and Trades Council, and Lacey Professional Firefighters. For a full list of community leaders and elected officials who are supporting my campaign, please visit my website. Please honor me with your vote, and together we will make Thurston County government run better. I'm Steve Drew, your Democratic candidate for assessor. Thank you.
Mr. Pulsipher.
Thank you. The work of the assessor's office is a critically important position and office in Thurston County government. It assures that there's adequate resources to fund local government services to meet the needs of our community. In our country and our local community, we're experiencing a time of difficult economic uncertainty. Local governments are experiencing revenue shortfalls, and public are as well. It's important that Thurston County tighten its belt, seek ways to be more productive, and still offer high-quality service. It's important that there be a steady hand at the role and at the helm of the assessor's office, and one with proven experience and a track record of success. We revalue approximately 120,000 parcels every year, which is about $30 billion in value, with 14 appraisers. That's a huge accomplishment that many of our candidates have had no experience and involvement within. We've won awards at the international level for our customer service, contrary to some statements being made here this afternoon. I think it's important that your candidate do have a track record of knowing the business and the operations of the assessor's office. I think it's important that they have that leadership and background in that area. I'm that candidate that has that experience. I would be honored to be your next assessor, and I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being with us on this debate with the candidates for assessor, Thurston County Assessor. Again, it's a very important office. They're collecting your property taxes, which are fairly large. We had Mr. Pulsipher, Mr. Drew, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Gadman. Be sure you're registered to vote, and do vote in the primary election. The primary is very important. Often people ignore the primaries, but they are important. You have 4 candidates here for assessor, and thank you for being with us on this debate sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and TCTV. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.